So far, when we've created components, how we use them is first we declare the component name, and then we give it some parameters, whether they're positional parameters or named parameters. But there's another way to create components called block components. So for example, here's a link to helper that does not have a block, whereas here is a link to helper that does have a block. So to make it a little bit more clear on what the block is, here's the block, and it's between the opening part of the link to component and the closing part. So the opening part starts with a hash. That's how it's set apart from the other types of link to components. And the closing part has a slash. So in this video, we're going to make it so our email status component can be used as a block component. But first, let's go ahead and set up our email status so that there's a need for a block component. So first we'll wrap everything in a div with the class email status, and then we'll use CSS on that class in order to put a border around it. This is what it will look like. So it's quite set off from the page. And what we want to do is put a message in here, in this box, that is only visible on the About page and not on the Contact page or the Foods page. We'll see what happens if we try to include the message in a paragraph below the component. What happens is it's on the page, but it's not within this box like we wanted it to be. The answer is to use a block component. This is what we'll want this handlebars to look like when we're done. And the way to achieve this is we just put a yield statement within the handlebars of the component. That yield statement will be where this block is displayed, just like that. And as you'll see, the other components, they still work just fine as non-block components. They just don't put anything into yield. That's just blank for them. So to go over that one more time, if you have a yield block and you create a block component by starting out the name with the hash symbol and then having a closing tag here, then whatever you put in between that opening and that closing will get put into yield. And if you don't have anything in that opening or that closing, such as using it like this, then it just won't use that yield statement. There's one more thing I do want to tell you about. So there is the has block Boolean. So you can say things like if has block, then we're going to put in you're using a block component. Otherwise, we'll just say, sorry, no block component. And we'll see that here in Contact, we're not using a block component, so has block is false. But in About, has block is true, so it shows that.